That's good. Tells us we're recorded. Hi, Kimberly, can you see us? Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
I think everybody's.
Kimberly, you're muted.
There we
you
go, that's better.
Yep, that's good.
Fourth Zoom meeting today.
Yeah. Paul Feinberg won't be making it. So I'm not sure about Mike Barrett or.
I haven't heard from Barrett. How's he doing?
I haven't heard from him at all.
I haven't heard at all.
Been communicating, but I haven't heard back on.
Yeah.
So why don't we begin? Kimberly, can you hear us?
I can you hear me?
Yes, can you see, I'm gonna begin, we've got myself, Mike Garino, Lenny Wright, and Hans Rasmussen, the code enforcement officer here in attendance. So, we're gonna begin the meeting. We're just taking some. This meeting is being recorded. To begin the meeting, I'm just gonna, the major topic of today was the recommendation of the Comprehensive Plan Committee to form a conservation committee. And that committee would take the lead in resource protection strategies, including lake issues and open space protection. Since this has been asked, we form a Lakes Committee, which does probably a big chunk of that, all the lake related stuff. We've even done a little bit on the land. We wrote a letter for the select board offering our opinions and suggestions on the solar ordinance. So we have reached out beyond exactly what the Lakes Committee has been asked to do. So today, our goal is just to see if this is a viable move. Should we do it? Why we should do it? And maybe what kind of outcome, what would it look like? How would we expand it? What are the types of things we have? From each of you, Kimberly, I've given those in attendance here, copy of our comprehensive plan, the natural resource section A. And in that, it has a number of tasks that were directed to a conservation committee. So as we go through, I'll read them off so you can have them. I don't know if you have this available, but I'll just read them off just so we can get it into the record. The conservation plan of 2014. One of the most prominent recommendations was to form a conservation committee. This committee would take the lead on resource protection strategies, including lake issues and open space protection. The implementation report has a number of items that were attached in the natural resource section to a conservation committee that was not formed. The first being promote landowner awareness and action by developing or obtaining and distributing information about the needs of the plan. Begin a habitat database. Require applicants to request review from Natural Areas Program in an area known for unusual communities of rare plants. Establish a critical resource conservation district encompassing all areas of known critical resource assets. Prepare an open space plan, including criteria for public land acquisition. They have it in parentheses, recommend working with local land trust groups. Monitor disturbance of forests and wetlands, especially those not included in the shoreland zone. and protect Belgrade's Esker Delta complex in districts where it's found. Those were what the plan noted that what they thought the beginning of the Conservation Committee would do. I don't think that was envisioned as the whole task, but that was what they have in the plan. And then, to date, none of those have been done. As part of our preparation for this, the committees look through other towns' conservation plans, where conservation committees or commissions. There's a difference between a committee and a commission. A committee is simply similar to a Lakes Committee, where we are chartered by the select board. The Conservation Committee is by state ordinance that gives it a little bit different oversight. It's not just directed by town ordinances. It's done by some state ordinances. And, I think our thought was we would stay a committee and not go that route, but that was just where we were at our last meeting. In the meantime, we shared probably about 5 towns that have conservation committees or commissions, and look through their data, what they do, especially looking through what they do, what their mission is, how do they describe it, how broad is it, what do they emphasize? And a few of them come up that look pretty much like our Lakes Committee.
Yeah.
Very much like it, except they include the land piece, and broadly that could be the natural resources. Or, that was as the comprehensive plan recommended, it was natural resource protection strategies, open space protection would be part of a new conservation committee or a Lakes Committee with a new name. I think those are up in the air, but I think the task right now is, should we do this and why? What should we expect for outcomes of it, and how would we operate it? In the past, we were successful when we went through this same process in looking at a new CEO. And it was we had the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee had gone through the CEO performance and what they've done and what they hadn't done in the past years, and we found up large gaps in code enforcement officer performance, due diligence on shoreline zoning, follow-up. So that was that kind of a big stimulation for our committee to recommend that a new CEO should have more hours, because a lot of the problems was they didn't have enough hours for the tasks they had to do.
And record keeping was one of the things that
Record-keeping was
fell
a
off
big
the
thing.
table a little bit, because there's only so much time in the day.
Just sitting with Hans for a few minutes there, they get phone calls coming in, and it's kind of a busy time, and even at this time of year. So that this committee then wrote a kind of a piece to the recommendation to the town, recommending more. Bottom line was more CEO hours, and it looks like they're going ahead with that.
Yeah, well, I have a question, which doesn't relate specifically to what this committee has done, but rather to what the 2 previous comprehensive plans have said. I've looked at the most recent comprehensive plan, but I forget what it says, and perhaps you can remind me. But also it's noted that the comprehensive plan before that as well also recommended the creation of was it a conservation committee or was it a conservation commission?
They have it in the notes here, conservation committee / commission. So
Commission,
leaving it up to the choice of.
Okay, I guess my question is, why, the obvious question, and I think we need to find out why was it not created? given that it was recommended very strongly by in two comprehensive plans. Also, that there is this committee, which Kim is a member now, though I gather only recently, and you're a member as well, of the implementation committee that is presumably telling the select board annually in a report, such and such in the comprehensive plan has not yet been attained, and it's important, so you better get on it. And I would assume that creating the conservation committee or commission was one of those items that they kept pounding on them, you better do this, but somehow it never got done. And the reason I asked the question is that there may be something going on here that we're not aware of, that when we present to the select board that we should do this, they might say, well, hold your horses. There's a reason why we
I agree
haven't.
with that.
Yeah.
I was asking the same question. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Is there other barriers to entry that we're not aware of?
Yeah,
Or is it something that just got tabled consistently over the years? and
yeah.
Sort of collected dust.
Yeah, there, and
Caveats.
there must be, this seems like such a no-brainer to do, to use the cliche, that one must, wonder what's going on here, why it hasn't been done after all this time, given that the recommendation dates back 20 years or so.
I don't have an
I
answer.
don't have one either. The only thing I could think of was, remember when we went from the ordinance, mooring ordinance
Yeah.
committee to the lakes committee?
Yeah.
That there were some members of the select board that weren't
Oh.
in favor of adding another committee to
yeah.
the list. I think that a potential solution to this
Mhm.
is we're not gonna add another committee, a conservation committee or commission, whatever we decide to name it. Rather meld this together
Yeah,
to
Yeah.
solve the long range planning
Right,
yeah.
questions and
Yeah.
sort of morph us into more of an all
almost two or
encompassing.
three sentences.
Yeah.
Well, it could be, but by the way, Mike, I think there's an important distinction between a committee and a commission, as I read it, and I may be wrong, I'm not certain of this. I think the committee, a conservation committee can be created just by a vote of the select board, like our committee was.
Right.
But I believe a conservation commission would have to go to a town vote.
Right, because it's kind of outside the,
Yes, right. Yeah,
Is it because of the jurisdictions, like who tells us who we would report to? In other words, would it be state versus town?
Well, because it's part of the state ordinance,
Yeah.
and it's, a commission has a certain amount of power. As a commission,
Rather, a committee would report to the select board.
just strictly reports to the select board and makes
Advisory.
recommendations.
advisory.
Strictly advisory
Just have-
capacity.
like we've done in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for.
I think so, well, don't take that, don't take that as gospel, that was just my impression.
Because they're formed under a state statute.
Yeah,
and they've
right,
gotta-
it's
you've gotta go with
a
that,
bigger
so
deal than
It's
just
a,
being
it's a
a town
bigger
committee.
deal, and the notes here, these, say committee or commission.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one sense I would have is perhaps what we might consider talking about is forming a committee.
Yeah.
See how that goes over a few years. And then if it seems like it's appropriate at that point, then, and if there would be any real advantage to doing it, then talk about making it a commission. If not, just leave it the way it is.
I would be in favor of that too. I don't want to jump into something that we don't fully understand, like the enforcement part, the rules part,
Yeah.
who we're reporting to. I think it would be a barrier to
I
getting
think
our
it's
work done.
just by putting in, conservation of natural resources. In addition to lakes
Sort of solves that.
and open space, we don't have to have a laundry list of things, we kind of react often as when things come up, we've had, questions from the select board, we need, additional, recreation space, on the water and
Right,
and North Belgrade or other places, so we get directions often directly from the select board. That tasking us. So I think if we keep it, as Lindy said, in our just an expanded committee, expanded mission.
Well, but it also, it would need to be an expanded committee.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah.
You need
you're gonna
different,
need some new people, you know, some people with, some different backgrounds.
yes,
Yeah, because when we formed this, we went through sort of the lake associations that touched the town of Belgrade, right?
yes.
And we, like, I'm from the Friends of Messalonsky, right, because I live over there, Lenny Salmon and McGrath, because he lives over there. This would maybe give us a chance to bring in some land folks
Yeah.
as well, with some expertise that we might not be, you know, familiar with.
Yes, for sure.
I think it makes us strong, it makes it a stronger resource for the town.
Yeah, the town of Cumberland, I'll just read this.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And I'll give you a copy of this. The commission will develop and recommend to the town council programs and policies to implement conservation/recreation related goals and objectives and the objectives of the town's comprehensive plan. Key is, I think, is everything's gonna be tied to what the town has already to the plans. And that's what we're following up on. We're not bringing new ground. This is a new item. This is what you want to do. These are the goals in each of the committee, in each section of the comprehensive plan. And they were assigned to different committees. So
We could fill the blue
we
ones.
could fill the blue lines and then it goes on to say, the commission will develop programs to achieve greater public awareness of the importance and need for conservation of natural resources and land within the town for open space and recreational purposes. Back when we had a meeting back in, I think, April, like a joint meeting with the town select board, Lakes Committee, Seven Lakes
Seven Lakes,
Alliance, and one of the comments was, you know, some of the members, very few people in Belgrade own lakefront property, have direct access to it, or really are ever gonna. They can get on and so it's a small, the thought is we have to be broader than just those who are, and most of the lakefront owners, I would say, are out of state. Aren't residents of the town, so by broadening this committee, I think we could reach residents. That's our goal, is residents of Belgrade, taxpayers, and get more focus on that, because I've asked some of the lake association groups and Seven Lakes, how many residents of Belgrade do you have as donors? And I haven't got that information back yet, but to me, things like that are key, of who's supporting it financially, and I don't know, you know, Lenny, if some of you, have you ever heard that some of the local residents feel that their voices aren't being considered, not so much on lakes, but open space, other types of recreation, snowmobile trails, fishing,
I think access is always
yeah.
like a topic of discussion, right? We're lucky that we have as many public boat launches, you know, all our lakes have launches and whatnot, but that's always something that comes up if access goes away. Hammond Lumber Boat Launch, right, on 27, if access goes away, you try to create new access to take the place of that was shut down because of the milfoil, right? So they opened a new launch in the town of Sydney on the same lake. And that was all part of that plan. I do not know or remember what the town of Belgrade had to say in all of that, because there wasn't a conservation committee back then. I think it was done by DIFW and DEP in tandem. But these would be the types of things that could potentially come, you know, to the committee, where we could help do research, come up with viable options, and then present them to the town.
There's some also probably, you know, joint venture potential with Seven Lakes or other land trusts, you know, for trails where the town could participate maybe in the planning only, or not have to financially come up with it, or they may be able to gain volunteers for maintenance. I think that's a big thing, is to get more people in the community who aren't involved in these type of things.
Right.
Involved, to, you know, and it's gotta be something they have an interest in.
Well, a good example is, excuse me, up in Bar Harbor, up on MDI, they have a conservation committee that works with the Friends of Acadia.
Yeah.
And they work on trail cleanups, you know what I mean, and
Yeah.
getting information out to people on best practices, things like that, to help preserve and protect the lands that are outside of the park. Oftentimes the landowners have like a better interest in what's happening outside of the federal lands. And so they work together on those types of things, build trails, things like that, sort of engage the community. And then, of course, the education kind of folds into that.
Goes
So
into it.
that's what I kind of saw the potential for a conservation committee here. You know,
Yeah.
be to just engage more towns.
More town focus.
Yeah,
And the people's needs in the town,
yeah. And if, you know, if we present it in a welcoming way,
right,
rather than like the commission or, you know, that oversight part, we may find we get more engagement from people, you know, cleaning trails and doing those types of
right, and
things.
there's, opportunities to partner with the Seven Lakes on some of on the trails,
Right.
create new ones in Belgrade. I don't know if we have much town land, but
I'd have to look, I don't even know, do you know?
No,
I don't really know.
I'm not aware that there's much in the way of town land at all.
Yeah, it's very privately owned.
Minimal, absolutely
so
minimal.
maybe, joint work on it is better, so the town doesn't lose it in the tax base and doesn't,
Sure.
uh,
You know, there's another thing that's worth bringing up anyway, and that is the loss of access. So it's winter, so snowmobile trails is a good example, right? Most of the trails around here go through private land, almost exclusively.
Sure.
So if there becomes an issue with something either that's happening on that property due to human activity or environmental concerns, culverts, runoff, wetlands, things like that. Somebody went through the Sydney Bog in a snowmobile the other day thinking it would be frozen. It's not, right? So rather than lose that access and have that portion of a trail shut down, there's a town committee the landowner could come to and say, listen, I'm having a problem with that. Maybe take a little of a load off of you before it gets to you. And then we wouldn't lose that access.
because that's
You know,
huge.
Yeah, and I think that that's an important thing to consider, especially with the dynamic of our town.
Exactly. And I felt, since being on these committees for a couple of years, going through the moorings committee and some of, it was more waterfront owner centric work,
Right.
We had support from town residents, but the bulk of it was, the energy came from lake landowner. So I think now we've got that taken care of as far as what we can do. But the other part of getting people on the land, using it, different types of recreational opportunities are endless here. And it's good if we could get everybody involved or who wants to be involved. We've got a nice rec center, there's a nice place to do it. The town has great facilities there to begin things. A recreation director. Jim, do you have any thoughts on what we've been mulling over here?
One of the things I wanted to say is that I've had some interactions with Dan, the director of the rec center, and he's been great. He's very motivated. He's very eager to make changes and get people more involved with the rec center. So I think he's going to be a really good person to be, at least to provide us with some feedback for this new committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been really, really good.
It's a great conduit too, to get information to the public, because
It
a
is.
lot of townspeople frequent the rec center, so. Yeah, engaging him would be great. That's a great one.
Yeah, and he's been doing a lot of postings on Facebook, which I think a lot of people follow, for different classes that are coming up, et cetera. So he could also be a means to us to reach out to people further.
When that was built, the Center for All Seasons, I was there, as many of us probably at that time. It was a gift from several major donors and hundreds of residents chipped in and actually built it. But the thought was then it would be something that could grow as the missions could grow. Like they didn't envision so much. It was more like typical basketball, swimming, kayaking, but now we've got hiking, natural resources, getting outdoors more. And I think
Summer
that-
camp,
Summer camp.
yeah,
So I think this, with the facilities they have and the management they have, we can incorporate parts of this. And that's a good place for it to go, because they're already there.
yeah. It's always nice when a town committee can help with like the quality of life
It
in
is.
the town and then sort of be able to help, what's it gonna look like 5 years from now or 10 years from now?
Well, speaking of Dan and the rec center, there's a committee, I don't recall the exact name of the committee, it's kind of a recreation committee, isn't there? That Linda Bacon is
Yeah,
head of.
There is, I don't know much about that committee.
Yeah, I mean, I do know that at least recently, they've been struggling to find members for the committee. I mean, if it's kind of isn't it, it's more of an outdoor recreation committee, or that's a question, not a statement.
Park and Rec Committee.
Part and rec committee kind of thing. I mean, perhaps, and this is just off the wall kind of thing, maybe that could be incorporated here as part of this. I don't
kind of
know.
merged into it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about parks and recreation and you're also talking about conservation, I mean, I don't know
Maybe.
whether that falls within conservation or not. That'd be something you have to kind of scratch your head on. I don't know.
It's not a big stretch.
No,
Okay, not a
I
big
think it's
stretch.
a big stretch. I was on Park and Rec Committee for years and years, way back when we built the center.
Okay.
And, we were looking for members then too, so.
Right.
like everything.
Committees, it's sliced and diced, and it's only a
Yeah.
certain amount of people are gonna wanna.
They wanna do that stuff.
Right.
That's
are
what I-
gonna wanna
Well,
have the
it depends on what kind of recreation, I mean, we don't really have any parks, but if we're talking about outdoor recreation, which we've just been talking about, at least to some extent, and parks, then yeah, that would fall under this.
Yeah.
It might be a way to incorporate it.
According to the website, it's a 10-member committee, and it currently looks as if there's 5 plus a chair.
And Linda's the chair of that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Linda
she has-
Bacon is the chair, yeah.
Yeah.
There's another member on that committee that I'm friendly with. I might be able to talk to her about that and just try to learn some more about how their committee is developing, et cetera. If we decide to try to bring some of those people, might make good members on our committee as well.
No.
Linda would make a great member.
Linda, yes, absolutely. Linda would be
She's
just
probably
fabulous on the.
Smart
for
person in
links.
the room.
yeah,
When it comes to what we're talking about.
right,
I defer to her all the time. When I have a question about anything, I have Linda.
Right.
It's always
because a lot of it, you get committee exhausted, you have the same people doing it.
Right,
If we have it, I don't see it as mission creep, it's more like, we've got all these little pods out here, why don't we
yeah, take
get
them up.
some more energy with some more people and a little more mission?
Yeah.
And that might work,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it would certainly make it a bigger pot of interested people,
Yeah.
wider demographic.
You know, you mentioned it, back when we did the town forum
Yeah.
at the rec center, we had a great turnout for that. So we threw a discussion. We picked some topics through the discussion. People came, we had an open forum. It was really friendly, informative. And I think, either Park and Rec and Conservation, you should do that once a year,
Yeah,
at least. You know, so we don't overtax our volunteers, but, I'd like to see that as part of this, conservation
I do
committee.
too, it's
Thought it
more-
was a really good thing to do.
You mean, is that the one where Anthony? was-
Anthony ran, yeah, he was
Where
okay.
CMC sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Very positive, and I think people left there feeling pretty charged up.
it raises energy, yeah.
Right, it charged everybody up right on, and we were coming out of the virus too. I think people were really happy to see each other and sort of bring the town back together and talk about, whatever issues we were facing.
Hans, do you have any thoughts on what we're going over?
Yeah, you're a Lakes Committee or Association.
The committee.
Committee for here, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed regionally, you've got some East Pond Association, North Pond Association, you've got salmon, you know, every lake has its group. And it's kind of essentially what you're doing is creating another group. But Seven Lakes Alliance has kind of positioned itself as the contractor, because they're basically doing the youth conservation, the courtesy boat inspection, the milfoil projects, and just all the little communities are funding the projects.
Yeah.
And duplicating never is effective, you know, when you create this little conferences, or, you know, there's a conflict in scheduling, they might have a moonlight paddle scheduled, and well, you wanna do the equinox, the June 21st moonrise paddle, you know, the huge moon coming up over the lake, it's always spectacular. So coordinating with, you know, the contractor could make things a lot easier.
I think so
You know,
too. We work,
create your
we've
committee
been in cahoots with them.
and help sponsor some of what they're doing, or bring your own,
Yeah,
but, you know, use
use that.
their billboard, their bulletin boards, use some of their free publicity or whatever they have to offer, you know, a location, you know, they're a great place to launch.
They are, Lenny and I are both on the board.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
And Paul's BLA, right?
Yeah,
So Feinberg sits on BLA, which is really good, but you're spot on too, like,
Yeah.
because this is a municipal committee.
mhm,
That reports to the select board, and Seven Lakes is a nonprofit. They wouldn't necessarily report to the select board on town issues, but they are our conduit for information and what's happening next. I mean, they have their finger on that so well.
and you could be this point of the spear
yeah,
and allow them to be
yeah,
the rest of the
yeah,
blade, you know?
just says, yeah, I see no change in that at all, and maybe even more. so.
Maybe more,
Maybe
yeah.
more, but you know,
Definitely, you know, it's all well and good, but just maintain your position at the point of the spear for your projects.
yes, because,
Help them with theirs, you know.
you know, this is what we have is the regulatory, ordinance control and code enforcement officer.
What is this?
Yes, please,
Do you know how long you guys will be?
we'll be out here by 5.
Oh,
Yeah, we'll be done before we close out. Promise,
Okay.
promise. We work well on timelines, the Lakes Committee does.
Yeah, we haven't been at the beginning of the Better Lakes organization, you know, a member of BRC. I've seen the growth of it. It was, you know, maybe 5, 6 years ago, 4 people.
Yeah.
You know, and one of them was the office manager, they had a lakes and a land person, that was it. And it's grown exponentially because it was created for this mission you're doing now. We saw the degradation of, you know, from climate change, lake water quality was down. That was the #1 driver of it. Plus BRCA was a lake land trust. So their major goal was preserving land. And the Kennebec Highlands was their big major thing in the 80s, 1988, 89.
How much of the land in the Highlands, I don't expect you to give me like acreage, is in Belgrade? 0. That's what I thought. Yeah, none of them. Yeah,
Rome, Atlanta,
yeah. Interesting. Because I was thinking Fog Mountain,
New Sharon,
the Fog Mountain area, but that's
Yeah.
not in Belgrade, that's in Melbourne.
yes.
Yeah, that's in Melbourne.
That's across the.
But it's you made me think, right, it got the brain going a little bit with, we're lucky we have the resources that we have in our backyard. Seven Lakes Alliance isn't a Belgrade centric organization. So we have to be careful that, you know, we keep to our mission of the town of Belgrade. That's our task.
And they're pulling funding from the region,
Right,
they're not just,
Everywhere.
right,
so.
right. But we should tap them whenever possible.
Absolutely, they do a good job of it.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, we absolutely should tap them whenever we can.
Yeah, we're very fortunate that there's a good, solid relationship with this group, all individually and as a committee.
They have a stewardship director on the staff, you know. So they've got a lot of these professionals that can really if we have a question we can ask or suggestions or an idea where one of these committees, they're readily available to talk. They weighed in on the code enforcement issue, attended the meetings, where they had a representative.
Yeah,
On
Charlie came and gave us an update on the Great Pond.
the water
watershed
quality,
plan.
they're always leading a conversation with the science, because I've got two scientists on board. So we use them as, like you said, Hans, we have ordinance regulatory authority here. They have the information, the ability to do the science, they're connected with Colby College, which is a tremendous resource, so,
There's more science than that's in here.
yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
They've got a very spectacular septic system. I know it's not a topic that you wanna really bring to the dinner table, but when they, because of their proximity to the water and, you know, the way when their system was put in, it was experimental. And, Kennebec Valley Water Quality was involved, and I think Colby, there's a lot of agencies involved with implementing it and funding it and governing it, but they did, they have kind of a dual septic field, and one of the septic fields is lined with alum, the other is not. And I've been trying to find the results, or if they, people have retired and,
sure.
you know, left the project, and, but I'd love to see the results of, just the septic field area of around the alum line one versus the non-alum line one.
Well, I was a project manager for that building.
Yours?
When it was built and worked with the architect and the builder through the permitting years of the construction.
And my curiosity is, since it's a totally engineered system, basically what's being put in the septic field should be clean water.
It is. Yeah.
So I wanna see, you know.
I'll be
I'd
happy to take you through it.
have soil samples. I've been in the basement, I've seen the system, because, I guess the maintenance fell to the wayside for a while, but you recently had it cleaned and.
Yeah, if you look at, it's an oxidation system. It's got multiple pumps that keeps pumping oxygen through the tank. It never stops. So if you took a cup out, you know, just open the scuttle, you know, took a ladle, put a cup in, it would look like clean tea. No odor, no nothing. And you know what gray water smells like. So that's what's going into that's what's leaving that tank and going into the leach field.
But
Wow.
see, it's a great example of what can be done, because a lot of low-lying areas around here, you know, not far from here, are land, the very small parcels of land. They don't have proper treatment facilities, and this is a system that could be implemented on a scale of, all right, it doesn't have to be one for every household, because they're very expensive. You could get a line of 5 households, just figure out how much the discharge is, put in a system that can handle it with a common field. You know, and yes, it's a small, like, public system, but
Sure.
it's, I think, the way we can start.
So is the magic there, the continual aeration of the tank?
Aeration, just like a big
Yeah.
municipal system, it's always,
Constantly?
Yeah.
there's no chemicals, there's no magic, but aeration.
Yeah, right, yeah, I understand, yeah, sure. And
And
just, that really totally speeds up, the normal process.
process it.
Yeah.
Their Kennebec Valley Water District is responsible for the alum and the testing equipment. There's right next to the building, there's 2 like scuttles,
Yeah.
and those are testing tanks, those are monitor tanks.
Oh,
And they have pipes going into, one goes into one part of the bed, which has no alum, and the other one goes into alum. And the goal is to see how effective, if any, is alum over, you know, the best technology of, you know, state approved system.
so you're looking for like results,
Are there results?
quantifiable,
There
or
were
is there any
some initial
quantifiable?
results, then I don't know if there's a maintenance issue with, the Kennebec Valley.
Well, another guy there
But
retired.
it was down, and I was thinking about this the other day, it was about 95% less phosphorus. because what it does is takes the phosphorus out.
Yeah, sure, that's what it's supposed to do, right?
Just like you do in the lake, yeah.
But well, yeah, but then eventually it would be all the phosphorus, all the aluminum would be bound to phosphorus, and then
Yeah.
eventually the phosphorus would just run through.
Yeah, it has a shelf life of
Yeah,
It was a 10-year
10 years.
plan.
yeah.
It's been more than 10 years, and that's why I'm wondering, if the sampling took place.
It would be
Throughout
good
the
to see if we
period
could
and what it is
restamp
now.
it, somehow.
You're on the board, so
Yes,
you know more than anybody in this room about it.
Right,
yeah, I watch it go in every,
must have been a great project.
But how do you sample? You have to get underneath it and,
what they had was like sensors or something that could, grab the samples and then it was piped into a tank.
yeah, but my question is, where do you sample? Underneath the alum, after the liquid has gone through the alum?
Underneath the alum.
Yeah, right, it would have to be, yeah.
So you can do some core sampling now.
Yeah.
And
We'll probably just remove some of the,
see what's seeping.
see what's out there.
But I mean, that's a great example when you get these properties that are in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always thought that, make a great seminar but
Sure.
for geeks like me.
Well, it's one of the things that gets brought up the most, probably of everything else, is septic systems and some of the old camps we talk about all the time, and, their leach fields are failing, the whole systems are failing, and
Mhm.
what's next for that, and I know it's expensive, there's expense involved, but that's what people ask all the time, what do I
Well,
do
these-
with my septic system?
Engineered systems are all along the coast, you see the
Yeah.
houses built on the ledge.
Yeah,
They can't put in a field, so in the basement, they do have little mini engineered systems, and you'll see pipes running off the rock and spilling into the waterway.
Yeah.
do the one like with the aeration, right? Can you shut those down in the winter and fire them back up again, or is it something that has to run continuously?
I would imagine you could shut it down.
Yeah, you just need to totally empty the tank, there's no reason not to.
Winter out.
Yeah. Like they run it because they use it.
Right, no, I was thinking of our house on Lake Champlain.
Yeah,
Needs a new septic system, and, but we shut the place down in the winter.
yeah, it's not a lot of technology, it's just, get
Water and air.
water there, in timing, how long it has to stay in one, it's like 3 different sections in that tank. It goes
Oh,
to this
3
one,
different sections. Oh,
then
really?
it goes to this one, then it goes to this one.
Then it goes
Then it
up.
goes So it kind of has a wait time. It was, the one issue was you didn't wanna, if you had a big event, you had too much, too much water going in or effluent,
Yeah,
that could overload that one section that's in, so we never had any issue with it. But, we never, could seem to work no matter what was going on.
cool. I'll have to look into that more. Maybe one of these days I'll pick your brain. No, it's not for Beldrick.
Any other, I guess, what's our next step?
Which I was gonna say, what do we do next? Do we,
Well, I think that probably would be a good idea, I'm not sure this is the next step, but it would certainly be a good idea to get some feedback from the select board in terms of what their level of interest is in our doing something like this.
would we just go to the meeting, get on the agenda to discuss? Would that be the right way to go about it? Every time we have to do something with the select board, I always forget what the process is. It seems like it's
Yeah, that's
not
certainly,
difficult, to just reach out to Mary, but
I find that, I think, that when we went with the select board, our letter to the select board
Yeah.
for code enforcement officer, more hours. The way that was, you wrote, and Lenny and others that edited, and did a great job. That was very compelling.
yeah,
And that's not telling the select board we do this, but I think if we had a 2 or 3 paragraph reasons why, what outcome we might want to see, issues.
Yeah, I think if we
rather
create,
than talk to them.
oh,
I think if we
okay,
create kind of like a fact sheet that we can present to them with some bullet
Yeah.
points, pros, cons, the direction we want to take, probably needs to be a one pager, but kind of
Oh,
a
yeah.
fact sheet or data sheet for our suggestion. It might be powerful or compelling.
Right, and I think it'd be joint with the 2 committees.
Mhm.
I think for the select board, they don't want to see more tasks,
Right.
more resources out there. These are things we're kind of on the edge of doing anyway, and asked to do,
But it's also the case that the comprehensive plan has called for this over and over again, and no doubt, and without any doubt, well, I shouldn't say that, but there's a pretty high likelihood that the next comprehensive plan, which is about to be undertaken, I would assume, because the state mandates it, is going to say something similar, so.
yeah, so.
It's not like there's a whole lot of choice.
No, we're supposed to do this.
Yeah. Doesn't this, am I not correct that the comprehensive plans are reviewed by the state, by someone in the state? Is that not correct?
I'm not sure where it goes. It's probably reviewed when it's submitted.
I believe I think I saw somewhere that it gets submitted in a preliminary form or a draft form, and then it gets finally approved. So the 2014 comprehensive plan mentions, oh, by the way, this was suggested in the previous comprehensive plan, which was 98. I'm not quite sure I understand the arithmetic there. And we're suggesting it again. And if the 24 report or whenever that finally comes out and says, well, they suggested it in 98 and they suggested it in 14 and we're suggesting it again. Somebody who is at the state level just might sit up and take notice and say, hey, Belgrade, what the hell is going on here?
A major action item.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean, it would seem like that might be something we would make in if we're going to do this pros and cons or bullet points or
Right.
whatever, yeah.
Yeah, I would find it hard to believe that our select board, knowing them, would say, no, we need to add another committee to the list, right?
Yeah.
Especially if we go and say, let's make this happen.
Well, knowing our current makeup of our select board, I think there are of the 4 members of the select board, there are 2 who will definitely be in favor of doing this. One who, it's kind of a hard read, but I think will probably be in favor, and one who will possibly be opposed.
Yeah, well, it's hard to, unless they have another idea,
Yeah,
right, in the works that we're not aware of, which I don't think there is. They've had 20 years to come up with that idea. We're sort of helping to solve that problem.
right,
And
So I think this is a winner. I'm going in with high hopes.
Yeah.
We can help the town a little bit with this.
Yeah, it's also the case that in the election in March, Dan Newman is running unopposed. And for this, which is a 3-year term, and I guess the 2-year term, which to replace Rick Dameron, the 2 candidates are Nick,
Yeah.
Alexander,
Yeah.
and Peter Rushton.
Yep.
And if perchance Peter were to win that election, then I think there'd be a pretty strong vote there to do what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because Peter, having been the chair of the planning board for a decade or more, I think would be very much in favor of this.
He would need to leave the other post.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
if he's
Like
elected
Dan
to
yesterday.
select board, he couldn't be on the planning board
Right.
as well. He would not have to leave
But he'd bring all the
chairmanship.
knowledge.
Oh.
The knowledge that will stay with him, so
Yeah, he'd leave the planning board entirely.
we need to make sure we don't
Yeah, we
keep
gotta-
them here after.
We got about 3
hours.
minutes, so,
Okay.
So
Yeah.
write a letter?
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, fact sheet, I love that. That was a great idea. Keep
How
it
about-
simple.
You and Kimberly, and then come to, lady, you
Sure.
want to participate with the
yeah.
letter with Kimberly and Mike.
Kimberly, what's your best email?
Email for me is Kimberly@Dallas, DALLAS, med, MED, tech, TECH.com.
No period in between men and tech, okay. Got it. Yeah, and it's probably on our emails.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll shoot you a note, or you email me or whatever, and we'll.
Yeah, reach out and we'll figure it out.
Sling it together.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
That
we
sounds
wanna
great.
get it ready for board review in, a week or so. I'm going on vacation on Saturday.
I'm going.
Good for you. Enjoy.
For a week. I'm going to thaw out.
Oh,
I
nice.
gotta go see my parents, and they're in Florida.
Should we copy Hans too, once we get
Sure.
a review? of
Yeah,
it?
once we write it.
Once we
Yeah,
write it,
yeah,
we'll
then
get
you
it.
can,
Where in Florida?
south of Fort Lauderdale. Yeah.
South of Fort Lauderdale.
It's a little, they're in Margate.
Yeah.
Is the name.
I'm
of
going
the
to
town.
Keys for a while.
All right,
I see, that sounds tough.
it's like a little Italian community in the middle of.
Anything else you'd like to add? Hans?
Well, just, one of my pet projects I'd like to see added to
Yeah.
the area is, the Lake Smart program.
Yeah.
People get their little Lake Smart badges and they're
Yeah,
very proud
yeah.
to exhibit them in their yard.
yeah.
There's a big move for septic testing, and I think a safe septic program similar to that with a medallion or some trophy that people can proudly say, my septic is safe and good.
What, it's called Safe Septic?
Yeah, just something to start,
Oh,
something like
yeah.
As
that
part of
type
that
of program needs to be initiated, because getting people to voluntarily do stuff is difficult, but if they get a trophy for
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
A trophy with some poop on it. Yeah, some golden poop on it.
It's great.
Yeah, that would be aluminum.
But I mean, I'd love to see this committee, where
Well, we appreciate your.
That's a
comment on
great
that.
take on something
Yeah,
with some legs
Yeah.
that,
good
you
help.
can say, hey, that was us. And then you have Seven Lakes Alliance
Yeah,
manage it for you.
that's right. We only have one other item, minutes, review and acceptance of the December 7th minutes.
I move to accept them, though I liked it better when Pat's name was spelled the other way. Whatever that was.
He probably did that just to make sure we read it.
Yes. All those in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, done. Oh, Kimberly, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening, gentlemen.
Thank you.
But,
Thank you. Thank you, Han.
Thanks.
great. That's a good use of an hour of your life right there. That's good.